Congratulations on passing Tier 1 training. Today we'll go over Tier 2, but before we get started, here are the ground rules. Make sure that you use the comment and discussion section on our YouTube channel. Any questions that you may have, we will go in after and answer them. Make sure that you are also completing the training within the listed date and time in your email. You are allotted a max of 5 hours to complete the training, of course at your own pace, but make sure that it's done by the listed time and date in your email. Last but not least, make sure that you are not sharing our internal training materials. Today's agenda. We'll go over the recap of Tier 1. There is a helpful FAQ that I'll show you where the location is, and you may want to just keep that in mind if you have any questions about the basics for the exceptions workload. Then we'll get into the training. Tier 2, the workload consists of returns portal, returns contact, and of course intercepts and address corrections. Once you have completed that portion of the training, it is very important that you do the mandatory workload practice. Although we list that you should do a minimum of 3, of course you can do more of that. As we all say, practice makes perfect. After you've done some practice and you feel prepared and ready to go ahead and take the Tier 2 quiz. Just a reminder, this is an open book test, so feel free to use all of the resources available to you. Now let's get started. Now let's go to the exceptions basics FAQs. So you go to guide, you go to the CS FAQ. We're going to scroll down to the exception section, and then it's going to say CS exceptions workload basics. This is all basically what you went across in Tier 1, but again, you can use this as a friendly reference guide. We have the point person that you can go to, or the point persons you can go to. You also have the tiers, like what does it entail for the exceptions workload. It's broken down to exactly what falls under and what tier it falls under exactly. We have a lot of notes here that you should reference, the SLAs, for each workload. What are the Zendesk groups versus the views? When someone delegates a task in the exceptions room, they're typically going to use the Zendesk views, and within the views, it houses the Zendesk groups. So all of these groups fall under the umbrella of the views, just so it would make a little bit more sense to you in that regard. It also lists the statuses, when to use them, and what they mean when you see it. And of course, after referencing all of the other FAQs within the exception section, if you have questions, you can feel free to use Slack. Our default Slack channel for exceptions questions is the CS exceptions team Slack channel. All of these other ones you can use for any other workload if you'd like, or any suggestions you may have, you can use these other channels. Your primary place would be the CS exceptions team Slack channel. However, if it's something that everyone across the board knows the workload, I encourage you to use the Ask an Expert. If it's specifically a DS issue and you want a little bit more insight, you can also use the DS Help Slack channel as well. We try to avoid sending any of the exceptions questions in any of the updates or Ask an Expert channel, only because not everyone is thoroughly trained in all of exceptions. And if we're answering something, they may think that they have to handle these type of issues as well. So now that I'm knowledgeable about this or how to handle it, now I should be doing it as well, which is not the case. So just make sure that you have to think through, is it okay for me to send it here, or should I send it here instead and it's fine? Just think about these things before you send it over. I would tell you to make sure that you pause the video now, go to this FAQ and review it. It's helpful information, and I know that I probably sped through it, but it's okay because you have access to it. So pause the video here and please review. All right, so the Tier 2 training, again, it's returns portal, returns contact, and intercepts and address corrections. Please pause here to review all of the bullets, just basically explaining or expanding upon what each of these will review. Now let's go over the returns portal. Before we go over exactly how to process a return on a CS end of things, let me show you how to get to the report. In the customer service tab within admin, you are going to scroll down and click on the link that says new returns portal. Once here, you will see a few options. If you want to search for a return order, you can do that by the order number or the return ID. You can also use the field to put the tracking number in, and be sure that you are editing the status or the date so that you know once you click search, it's searching all possible variations to pull up the order in which you're looking for. You also use this, of course, you've been trained on how to create a new return in the returns portal, but let's focus on processing returns. In order to get to there, you want to deselect the dates. This opens the window broader, so you'll be able to see exactly all the returns that need CS attention. Then you want to use the drop down here. We are mainly focused on credit or order. If you go to credit and hit search, you will have to scroll down to see the results. Right now we don't currently have any, but if we did, you'd see a whole list of returns that need to be processed, and then you can filter it by last modified. We like to do it this way so that we can work from the oldest to newest. Now, if you are scheduled to work on returns, I may say one person work on credit or one person work on orders. Either way, this is how you would get to one or the other. You click on order if you were assigned to do orders and hit search. And then as you can see here, the results come over. Here is the order number. Here is the return ID. This is when it was created, the status, and last modified. It also has the customer email in here. It's important to pay attention to this in case someone was returning a gift. So you wouldn't want to necessarily let Molly know that her daughter-in-law returned something. It just gets a little awkward. So pay attention to who initiated the return whenever you're processing. These are things that you have to pay attention to. Let's just click on one so you can see how it looks. This is the order details, the regular order details here, and you see all the regular information. One thing you see on the right here is the return number. This is basically the same thing. It's just two sides to the coin. So you can see that a return was processed. Clicking on this will take you to the exact return information. On the left-hand side, you're going to see the return ID number. You're going to see who initiated the return. If it ever says admin, that means that CS or Uncommon Goods basically initiated this return process. You're going to see the status. That means do you need to place an order for the return, whether it's a replacement order or a gift certificate. Those are the two options. We don't offer exchanges anymore, so just be mindful of that when you see those notations from the customer or someone internally. It shows you when it was created and last modified. This will be the ticket that housed the, the call tag. Sorry, lost words for a second. This will be the call tag ticket in Zendesk. And once that launches, you'll be able to see it. So this is the automated ticket for this return. When you scroll down, you will see the summary. So you want to pay attention to all of this. Is the purchaser and the recipient the same? If not, that's something to be mindful of in case someone was returning a gift. This will be notes that you should use for updates, especially if it's something that you're doing outside of policy for a particular situation. You want to make notes there. If you did any refund, you want to be specific here as well. Anything that you do for the return, you want to just make a quick note here so we can reference it, whether it be customer service or someone in the warehouse. You just want to make sure that you're leaving a note and saving. All right, in this section, this will show if we have to refund anything. So you want to be mindful of that. When you're dealing with someone's money, you want to be mindful of what it is you are refunding or charging. To the right, you can see the replacement orders. So when you create a return in admin, and if someone wants a replacement, it automatically creates the replacement order. You can click on this, and it'll show you the order. Typically, if it's something where we don't want it to ship right away, this would be on hold, in which case we'll go through that further in the training. All right. If you ever have to manually create a replacement, let's say that something was off here, like it was wrong, you want to make sure that you're canceling that replacement order. And when you create the new one, you are linking it here by putting the number in, adding it, and once it's added to this gray section up here, you will click yes, I want to finalize all replacement orders, and that will close out the return. Scrolling down further, this also does this for credit. So if you actually refunded the customer in whether it's PayPal, Borderfree, Braintree, once you do this, it'll close out the return if those are the only actions that you need to do to resolve the issue. Now, when you scroll down here, it'll list all of the returned SKUs. So this tells you the quantity that was returned versus what needed to be returned. So that's something to pay attention to. Another thing, it'll list purchase price and current price. Sometimes when someone purchased something, it may have been more or less. The prices change sometimes for items depending on a number of factors, but you want to pay attention to that as well. Whatever the purchase price is, if we had to do a refund, that's what you'd be refunding the customer. This lists the reason for the return type, this is what they're asking for, and any notes. If you remember up here, it said that the customer created the return, so this is a note from the customer. What they said is it arrived with a crack. Also, the finish does not look shiny, mug looks faded. And then lastly, down here, you would see any information regarding any changes that happen within the returns portal. Now, let's go over some examples of how to process a return so you'd be prepared for your practice, your quiz, and then, of course, when you get on the floor and you are working on returns.